Opposing Gloves here. We are going to talk, this is the 5th video in the Massive from the Ground Up series. We're going to talk about these boxes that are everywhere because we've talked about envelopes now and we've talked a bit about routing. And so maybe now you want to create a more complex sound, and I guess I'm just going to kind of demonstrate what you would use an envelope for. So let's say we have whatever we have currently, which would be a square wave. And that is all we have. All right, so let's say we really like this envelope. You know, we're just looking for inspiration. So we're going to take it and we're going to put it on the spectrum tab, and we're going to make it reverse it backwards. So this knob will turn down in correlation with this number 1, with the first envelope. As the envelope is activated, the knob will turn down really fast and then turn back on a little bit, and then sustain for a period if we had some sort of sustain loop thing going on, which we don't. So it would sustain it according to how long we're holding down the note because it's on gate. And then when we release, the release would also be affected on this particular parameter. If we changed it to 1 shot, it would go through all the way regardless of where we started or wherever we released, and it would always start back at the beginning. If you had trigger reset on, but as I talked about before, I do not know why I cannot get that thing to work. And then of course there's the hold option, which I don't think would matter too much as a controlling signal. So you can hear it already affecting the spectrum. If we were to go to a more complex waveform, now if we were to change the attack, so it slowly goes all the way down and then comes back a little bit and sustains, and it just stays at the sustain. The release doesn't do too much in gate mode, but let's do 1 shot. There you have it. So that's pretty much it. That's all you really need to know for movement of oscillators. So we could maybe change our wavetable around. Let's say we want this to do that and that to move, just creating some interesting movement. We want it to go through filter 1. I haven't talked about the filters yet, but I'm assuming you have a little bit of knowledge about how they work. We'll go to like a bandpass type deal, and we'll create a second filter for that and maybe only affect it a little. And the skill really comes in making skillful movements. So let's make it a smaller movement. Oh yeah, the SC. Oh, it's a good thing we started doing this. And let's change the envelope here to something quicker. Oh, and it's our intensity because we know what spectrum does. So now we know what's going on. It's starting off as a sine wave and moving around. We don't want it to do that. We want it to be on a bend mode, and we'll send it from bend. We'll bend minus it a bit. See, that's why it's useful to know what these bend modes do, as we talked about in a previous video. Let's add some reverb. I mean, it's not the greatest sound in the world, but the idea is you experiment. Then, now what we can do is we could set one envelope to be a controlling signal for another. So it's called the side chain. So basically what this allows you to do is set one envelope to be basically the master over another. But we're not going to do that in this case. We're gonna grab a 2 because we want options here. So we're going to take a macro knob, which is basically a free knob, and apply it right there. Now, when we turn our knob on, this effect the envelope effect will turn on as well. If we click it again, it will show a down arrow. So when we turn this knob on, the envelope effect will turn off. This is more useful for LFOs than it is for envelopes just because of the nature of the controlling signal, but it'll still demonstrate our purpose. So right now, the envelope should be, if we turn 2 on, the envelope will be off. So no movement there. We still have movement on these guys, but no movement on our bandpass. Let's make it a low pass to make it more obvious. And now we're going to activate our envelope. And you can hear it do its job. And you can even modulate it while you're working on it. So those are some things you can do with, and you see that you can do with macros and knobs and self self-dictating envelopes instead of just volume. And you can also put in more than one envelope to control various parameters. Maybe you want it to do something real weird as it comes back using a crazy morph envelope maybe, and put it up to infinite. And you can even move around number 2 to change it. And you see, you start getting some pretty cool sounds pretty fast, and it's really easy to do, and there are literally modulation sources under everything. And the hardest part is honestly just wrapping your head around what's available. Like, we could go to, like, our serial parallel, which we've talked about, can be moved around, and it can change our processing route. So if we added a second oscillator, maybe made it something, just some other waveform, and let's set it to go through filter 1 as well. Actually, let's set it go to filter 2. Otherwise, moving the serial parallel would not matter. So as we move it from serial to parallel, we'll hear some of filter 2's influence happen. And let's drop number oscillator 1, our envelope 1, onto the cutoff. And so you can hear it start to do its job. And let's move the serial parallel according to another envelope, which would create another movement. Not necessarily totally useful movement, but on this one, it'll be more useful because you'll hear it go back and forth between the processing, creating a movement. So in this case, we want to drag it down. That way, when this activates, it'll be dragged down and back up. So when this goes up, this is going down. When this goes down, this goes back up. So it's important to know the correlation between which way you drag. I haven't even said this yet, but you click and drag to make the oscillator happen. You click and drag to make the blue lines or the green lines or whatever it is appear, so you can see your modulation source and how much. So as you can see, we hear the serial parallel, and it's not a lot, but it's enough to hear if we take it down halfway. Not the most noticeable, but let's take the same concept and put it here on mix 1 versus 2 and put mix 1 all the way on so you don't hear the second filter at all, and then do it. And you could hear that the filter high pass only comes in on when we start coming down, which is pretty much all the time, but you hear its volume change. There's only one point where it goes away completely. It would be at the very beginning at the attack. You can actually hear a little click as a result. Also as a result of the reverb. So that's really neat. There's one other thing that had just occurred to me, but I had forgotten what it was. So those are your modulation sources. Those are your options. Oh, I remember what it was. So you see the sidechain, you click it to activate it, and you click the other ones to make them go on. You could turn it off, and that becomes a third box that you could put another envelope or modulating source in to give you even more options. You probably figured that out already. So yeah, that's envelopes, or the modulation sources and modulation boxes, I guess is their official term. So yeah, check out composergloves.com, subscribe if you enjoy these videos and like being informed on the more particular parts about Massive. And have a blessed day.